Rob Cooper, First News, Prince Rupert.
Rand Assad, First News, at the Deep Creek Hatchery.
For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Tyler Noble.
For Health Watch, I'm Kathy Brooks.
For CFTK-TV News, I'm Sarah Consmo in Prince Rupert.
For CFTK-TV News, I'm Archie Cole in Terrace.
For CFTK-TV News in Smithers, I'm Sarah Comedina.
I'm Mike Kelly reporting. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Welcome and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Flashback. Today we look at stories involving the local real estate market, tourism, winter sports, and more. These stories first aired in the month of January, anywhere from the late 90s to the mid-2000s. So sit back and relax as we take you back through the past.
6 years of uncertainty surrounding what used to be Skeena Cellulose and more recent questions surrounding Alcan's future plans have certainly hurt home sales in our region, with house prices falling and homes remaining on the market a lot longer than they used to. But the Northern Real Estate Board's latest numbers say things are improving, and on this morning's To The Point, we heard predictions that they should continue to get better.
There's a few things happening around here. As you know, there's lots of mineral exploration going on. There's the Nova Gold project proposed north of Smithers here. So there's quite a bit of positive things there. We've got a movie that's going to be shot here, a Disney movie, so it's kind of exciting.
In Terrace, properties are starting to move again. Although the top-end homes are still selling slowly, other types of dwellings are doing better.
The container port is now the big driver, the LNG proposal. Some of them are fairly long-term, but still it's causing investors to start to look at Prince Rupert from all over the place, from as far away as Korea.
We actually saw several mobiles sell, which we haven't seen in the last 3 to 4 years. So that's showing that there's more and more people coming into the market, more and more of the tenants that are purchasing. And that's a wide range of price ranges of people who are coming into the market. And I think a lot of it is local. It's not so much of the transferees in, even though we do have that.
Langer says sellers are getting reasonable prices for their homes, though certainly nothing like they were getting 10 years ago. And she expects that stability will continue. Still, the realtors were on the whole pretty upbeat about the future.
I think we're on the road to recovery. Mortgage rates are very favorable. As in Terrace here, it's a buyer's market, but certainly we'd like to see a lot more listings too, because I think houses are going to start to move. We're seeing investors coming into town looking around, so I'm very optimistic.
John Crawford, First News, Terrace.
It's a piece of mail that many property owners in the Northwest can look forward to receiving this year. BC Assessment has sent out their 2006 notices, and in many of our region's communities, properties have gone up, especially in Prince Rupert.
The residential assessment will increase approximately 25%. So for most homeowners, they're going to see that type of increase on their property. Some will see upwards of 30% increases. As most would speculate, we believe it's the recent announcement of the port and the potential for the mill operating again.
Sitter says this is the first time in about 5 years that communities have seen an increase in the overall assessed values of properties. In Terrace, Sitter says residential properties have increased up to 10%, adding they are seeing a demand in certain areas.
The family homes in the Horseshoe, say around the 1970s, early 80s, they've probably seen the largest increase this year. And then the next property seeing the next largest increase are probably the newer homes in 1990s and later, where those homes did have some movement last year.
Kitimat values are up too, but by a much more modest percentage.
Kitimat's increase, the residential roll increased just over 4%. You're going to see a little variety in different housing stocks reacting a little differently. And since 2000 in Smithers, which has been probably the most stable community, we've seen fairly, again, stagnant or stable values up until this assessment year.
Residential properties in Smithers have gone up about 8%. So what impact will all these assessments have on property taxes? Sitter explains.
Of course, the tax rates are not set until sometime in the spring. They will look at their budgetary requirements. If the assessments increase on a consistent basis across the residential properties, then the only increases you will see or changes you will see, increase or decrease, will be a result of the tax rate that's set.
Here's a look at how other Northwest communities ranked this year. The residential portion of Port Edward has increased over 18%. According to BC Assessment, all communities in the Queen Charlotte Islands went up over 13% from last year, excluding Port Clements, where values have remained relatively unchanged. In Telkwa, the residential portion increased close to 5%. Burns Lake went up 2%. And finally, in Houston, Thornhill, and in the Hazeltons, there wasn't much of a change.
You're going to see is a lot of these properties are...
Sitter encourages anyone with questions or concerns about their assessment to contact their office or visit the website at www.bcassessment.ca. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Lindsay Noel Andreza in Terrace.
It's a very rare case taking place in a Toronto courtroom. After fighting to stay in Canada for the past 4 years, lawyers for the Viviers have now been granted a leave, and that's something that isn't granted in many immigration cases. Tomorrow, Toronto-based lawyer Lauren Walden will try and fight to allow the Viviers to get another chance to present their case to immigration officers.
I cannot actually see the negative. I can only see the positive. But we honestly believe that it would be positive. Otherwise, we start over.
Lawyers will argue immigration did not make a reasonable decision in rejecting the South African family's humanitarian plea to stay in Prince Rupert for health reasons.
One thing that the immigration should realize is that Heloise is really severe. She's got mutation Q127H, mutation 863D, and mutation R59W. And that means that she's got 3 kinds of porphyria in her body.
John Vivier and his 2 children, Dominique and Heloise, all suffer from a rare genetic disease called porphyria, making them allergic to sunlight. This battle has now gone on for 4 years, and Mother Maggie is pleading for what she believes will save her family's lives.
Before he makes any decision, please think. There's 2 kids' lives at stake here. We're not joking. This is no joke. I'm pleading, really pleading for my children's lives here. So please consider very carefully before you say anything.
Attorneys say the decision could be made within hours, days, weeks, or even months, but the Vivier family is confident when a decision is made, it will be one in their favor. Devin Keller, First News, Prince Rupert.
We'll be right back after these messages. It's interesting to look back and see how some local landmarks have changed over the years. Here's a look at some more events from Terrace's past.
Dozens of tourism stakeholders and others turned out to hear about the work Kermode Tourism is doing and how tourism is changing in a digital world. Tourism is a multi-billion-dollar industry in BC, and in Terrace it contributed over $38 million to the local economy in 2008. The group's executive director says it's critical everyone understands the importance of tourism.
The gas station attendant that doesn't know that we're one of the best fishing destinations, or we have really great skiing or amazing culture, that person could be your worst nightmare for supporting tourism, because in our mind it comes down to everybody. The community needs to be involved and engaged.
That's part of the reason why Kermode Tourism is holding a public gathering like this one. And while First Nations culture is a key component of tourism in this area, this Niska artist says more could be done to bring Aboriginal tourism to the forefront.
To be here assembled with some of the tourism operators and the people that are trying to promote tourism, I really feel that the Aboriginal community should come together, should be part of this.
Another key topic of discussion, the role of new media in promoting the area.
In the year of 2011, we're really excited about the new face of tourism being digital tourism and social media, and working towards developing a new website, a new living, breathing sort of organization that's really in tune with all the regional partners.
Terrace's mayor says he's impressed with what he heard.
We draw people to Terrace through a tourism initiative. They see what we have to offer here. That may inspire them to come back with other opportunities like industry or business.
All those business travelers that come here are interested in mining, pipelines, etc., they're tourists, and those are people we could potentially convert into people who come back a second time.
For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Tyler Noble.
Out at Fairview Terminal, all the buildings that once stood here have been torn down, leaving some piles of rubble behind. Some work is being done on cleanup, but no construction has started on the wharf yet. This pamphlet sent out by Prince Rupert's Port Authority says construction on that wharf was supposed to begin at the end of 2005, but as of yet, that construction hasn't started. There's also the matter of the construction window. Fisheries and Oceans Canada says construction must take place between November 30th and February 15th so as not to interfere with fish migration. Port Authority CEO Don Crucell didn't want to go on camera, but in a telephone interview he said Environment Canada has caused the delay. He said government officials have yet to sign off on certain environmental papers before construction can begin. He did say, however, that a contractor has been selected, and that contractor will work after the window has closed on February 15th. How the contractor will do that is unknown right now, but DFO said there are ways to work without damaging the environment, such as setting up curtains to control silt levels, or putting up bubble curtains around the area to reduce compression waves when pile driving. But nothing can happen until a decision is made. A letter sent to CFTK from Environment Canada today states a decision won't be made until environmental impacts have been considered and required consultations completed. In other words, we'll just have to wait a bit longer. For CFTK News, I'm Chris Armstrong in Prince Rupert.
A plan is currently in the works to harness the intense winds in the Hecate Strait known as the Haida energy field. But the proposal is raising concerns among Area A crabbers, who fear those windmills will be planted on top of some of their densest crab harvesting zones.
It's concentrated in a very small area, and that's the area we would not want to see the wind towers in. If they want to build them somewhere else, that's fine, but unfortunately the shallow area is where most of the crabs are, and the shallower area is where they want to build the towers.
The farms are designated for shallow areas just off the tip of Haida, which according to Gould overlaps with 20% of their densest fishing spots and could have an adverse effect on crab habitat.
We really don't know whether the crabs, how much they move around, whether they have any migration routes, whether the towers would affect that, whether the cables would affect it. Crab gear sometimes shifts. You put all those obstacles out there, some of them are going to end up tangled up around towers, and there's going to be gear loss. So we'd certainly rather see it built on land. We fully support the green power, but
Naikun says the location they're looking at now represents only a small portion of Area A, but they will be consulting with crabbers before starting construction on what is to be a 40 square kilometer wind farm.
We'll be meeting with the crabbers, crab fishery, several times, and sharing with them all the other studies that we're doing to try to arrive at what's the optimal location for us that gives us the best wind, the best likelihood of having a feasible project, and also addresses their concerns the best possible.
If Naikun can secure the necessary environmental approvals, power purchasing agreements, and financing, they say they'll start construction in a series of phases, which they expect to be complete by 2010. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Sarah Conspo in Prince Rupert.
Stick around, we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. 1999 saw some hardy locals celebrate the new year with an ice-cold bracer. Some of you may even recognize. Enjoy.
It takes courage, it takes a strong resistance to temperatures around freezing, and it only takes a few seconds before most of the swimmers can't take it anymore.
It's pretty cold, and I don't know what the rush is. It's just one of the things you do, I guess.
It's not too bad for the first 4 or 5 seconds till your body
we're
actually
taking the record this year.
No.
Yeah.
For a lucky few, after some reflection, there's a chance to change your mind. But young or old, it seems almost anyone is willing to give it a try.
This is a beautiful weather. You don't have better weather in the summertime. There's nothing to it. I first get into the water, then it's okay. Next year I'm over 75, I may quit.
For the Marlin swim team, it's just a matter of keeping the tradition alive.
It's just something that we want to bring in the new year with and have some fun, and just a way of saying thanks for all the support and everything. And it's all by donations.
After the swim, participants and spectators warm up with hot dogs, hot chocolate, or huddle in around a fire.
It was refreshing.
This is nice fun.
It's a good way to wake up in the morning.
I think I'll stick to warm showers. For First News, I'm Charlene Wyman in Kitimat.
If not for the snow, one could have easily confused New Year's for Halloween at LaKels Lake this weekend. The first part of the weekend's festivities involved a costume contest. Prizes were given out after a showdown between Tinkerbell and Kiss.
What do you think? It's pretty close. I think Tinkerbell wins. I absolutely.
And the winner is Tinkerbell.
But this wasn't the strangest part of this New Year's tradition. I think this costume best sums up what happened next. Sometimes you feel like a nut, and sometimes you don't. And if you do, you can join all of the other Northwest residents and jump in the water when it's below zero outside with a wind chill around -14.
And here comes the first people of the new year, the Peanut Lady and Tinkerbell.
A surprising number of Northwest residents took part in the annual polar bear dip. The Piper brothers were one of the first to take the plunge, and several families also joined in. Community groups like the Kitimat Swim Club were part of the insanity, and a group representing hankies also took the plunge. Our own Derek Zabel from the Mix hosted the event, but didn't take the plunge after all. Apparently his better judgment kicked in at the last second.
You see, I didn't have enough body hair to go into the water and bear that. As soon as Terra Search and Rescue started going into the water, chipping away at the ice, and it looked like a big giant Slurpee, better judgment came into my mind, and I thought, yeah, maybe not this year. It seems a little cold. But a lot of people did grin and bear it. Some people jumped in there, and in some really skimpy things, too. It was kind of interesting to see people's faces. It was kind of like, you know, as soon as they jumped into the water, they got that chill. And I think the coldest part about the whole Commodity Bear Swim was actually not necessarily jumping into the water. It was coming back out when you got that wind chill. People were actually walking out of the water, and the water was actually freezing to their skin. But it was pretty interesting, nonetheless, to see a bunch of people ring in the new year that way.
Javan Burke, First News, Terrace.
Basketball is a familiar sight to Conrad Lewis. He has been involved with the All-Native Basketball Tournament for over a decade. The All-Native Tournament Committee, along with Pacific Northern Gas, hosted a basketball camp over the weekend to help young players polish their skills and to offer them the same training opportunities they would have if they were living in the Lower Mainland.
Bringing the basketball clinics from down south up to Prince Rupert, up to the north, and getting as many kids, like you could see in the background, involved in basketball camps. Basically the same kinds that we have down in Vancouver.
The coach they chose to come up to the Northwest has an impressive track record. Andrew Mavis is an Olympian. He has played NCAA basketball and has even played professional ball in the United Kingdom. His goal while he is here is to teach these young players the fundamentals.
It's different for each age group, but the basic thing is fundamentals and working on strict fundamentals. And at the young age, that's when they have to learn them, and so that's what we try to focus on. It's tough with the young ones because you want to keep it fun as well. And so it's a balancing act. You want to teach them a few little things here and there, but while keeping it fun.
The organizers of Hoops for Kids hopes to make this an annual event, and were surprised to see how much fun the kids did have and how much their skills did improve.
I think it's really exciting. It makes us get better at basketball and yeah.
Have you been learning lots too?
Yeah. how to bounce through your legs and dribble around them, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Just to have some fun and learn some new stuff for the game.
Conrad Lewis says it blows his mind to think that these young players could be the next big shots at the All-Native tournament in the future. For NTV Sports, I'm Dana Prefontaine.
Their arrival in Terrace was delayed by crummy weather down in Vancouver Saturday. But the two-person CBC-TV scouting team eventually made its way through the gates at the Northwest Regional Airport just after 3:30 in the afternoon, with Terrace's Hockeyville committee and the new mayor, Dave Pernarowski, on hand for the official welcome. Meantime, outside in front of the airport arrival gate, a pickup game of ball hockey was already well underway. And even though it was a bit chilly outside, it was a pretty heated affair, as the CBC folks were able to see for themselves. However, this was only just a taste of what was in store. Later that evening, the Terrace River Kings were hosting the Prince Rupert Rampage in a CIHL hockey game. Prince Rupert has its own Hockeyville bid in, as does Hazelton's Ken Tremblay Memorial Arena, affectionately known as the Barn. The Terrace Hockeyville committee was hoping for a large crowd Saturday night, but I don't think they were prepared for this. The Terrace Arena was jammed to capacity, and both hockey teams put their best skates forward, and the fans responded with gusto.
I mean, for the Hockeyville thing, it was a lot of fun seeing a crowd like that, and it was noisy, and to be honest, since my 3 years, I haven't played in something like that, so that was a lot of fun. It was quite an experience.
But the big event planned for the weekend was Terrace's answer to the NHL Winter Classic, some good old-fashioned pond hockey on the frozen surface of Lake Else Lake.
The novice teams were here, the 8- and 9-year-olds. They typically have a game at 11 o'clock on today, and they decided to play their game out here at the Lake Else Lake picnic site.
What organizers didn't count on was the heavy snowstorm that hit the Terrace area yesterday. That undoubtedly cut down on the number of people who braved their way out to the Lake Else Lake picnic site. But as you can see, there were more than a few hardy souls who were up to the task.
It's a great day for snow. Lots of it, but lots of people, despite the snow, came out to join us.
Will all this impress the CBC folks? Well, we won't know that until the top 10 Canadian Hockeyville towns are announced on Wednesday, January 14th.
I think Terrace is a very strong Hockeyville contender. I think our hockey spirit, our community pride, our sense of just being working as a whole in the community will give us some energy to move towards that.
For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm John Crawford.
Hockeyville still remains today as a coveted event in the communities right across the country. Well, that's a look at the way it was. Thanks for joining us for a brief step back in time. I'm Hillary Johnson. Until next time.